So what we're seeing before us now, I guess, is ChatGPT. We know what it looks like. We're familiar with it. We know how it works. Basically, you start a chat, you type in the box, and there's a few options. You've got a voice mode, you've got a dictation mode, which I make very good use of. I do like dictating in rather than typing in. So you've got a lot of things in there that are very familiar to you. You can upload files depending on what version of ChatGPT you've got. You can use GPTs, which are in a marketplace. So if I go and look at all the different GPTs that are around, we can see what they look like. So if I go explore GPTs, well, we can go into a marketplace of them that's about to show up. But you can also then, if you've got a paid version, create your own. So you've got these repeatable things that you're going to use a lot. So you can look at, there's a Canva one. There's different ways that these things go into working with not just your requests, but also designing a logo with inputs, and DALI, which is an image generation model that did weird things, or a writing coach. I've seen some of them in there who are doing things like public speaking coaching as well. So there's a lot in there. That's ChatGPT. Also, I'm not forgetting projects. So if you're using any of these features like projects, you know what this looks like. If you go a bit deeper, you can go into deep research, and there's some specific apps you can associate with your ChatGPT. You can make it tie into your Google Workspace, your Office 365, all those things. You can create images, all this sort of thing. Claude looks like this. So it's a little bit different in the interface, not that different though. So we go over here and click over there. We can see many of the same things, a new chat. We can customize the way we're using Claude. So we can connect your tools, create specific skills. And that's where sometimes the difference between Claude and ChatGPT happen. So going through those again, just, oh, here we go. Back over here. Okay, so we can then use our chats, projects. So they don't have GPTs, but they do have projects. So your projects on the left there, artifacts as well. You're going to get different levels of access to these things depending on whether you got the free version or the paid version. Now, I pay for Claude because I use it very heavily. It's now my number one used system alongside Gemini. I don't use ChatGPT much anymore because I've just found a little bit, just falling behind a little bit in many ways. What I'm going to do is I'm going to swap over to the free version of Claude. This is one I just set up under another login. So it is the free one. I'm going to go in and sort of sign away my firstborn, all that sort of stuff. I don't want to get the desktop app, even though it can be really, really cool. It does a lot of talking out loud. So you can do the conversation and voice mode like you can do with ChatGPT. And you can then snap things like screenshots, drag files in, all that sort of thing. I'm going to skip that for now. We're just going to use it just on my plain desktop computer. Now, as part of this free thing, I've told it who I am. I've got nothing in here, no context. It doesn't know anything about me. So what I can do is start to connect things through. So you can connect through a bunch of things like your Canva account, which allows you to then bring in Canva designs and start interacting with them using a chat tool. Figma, if you use that, your monday.com, which is all your projects and boards, if you use any of that stuff. If you're loading things up to either Box or into other places, Gamma, for instance. Gamma is what I use for all my PowerPoint presentations because that's much faster to do that. So it allows me to then go, okay, I can develop my content over here on Claude and then send it through to Gamma to then turn it into these really amazing interactive presentations. So other things, Klaviyo, if you're using that for your e-commerce and email marketing, that kind of stuff. But that's just the featured one. There's tons more of them. A lot of Notion users I know really, really like working with this. HubSpot, if you're using that as your CRM, and it goes on and on. Asana. It connects up to all sorts of things. Your Stripe account, so you can actually import things from Stripe that will then analyze them, because sometimes those tools don't really do that well. What you're seeing here is a lack of contact, like your WordPress.com, but not your WordPress website. Make.com, which is an automation thing. Your GoDaddy account, if you're using that as well, you can check availability for it just adds a few extra skills into what you're already doing. But if I'm looking for, Microsoft Word, there's Word by Anthropic, which is an automation that allows you to control Microsoft Word from it. Haven't used it. don't really use Word that much. I'm more a Google Docs kind of guy. So that's not one I've used a lot. But what I have done in my other installation, my paid installation, is I've connected things like my Google Drive, my Google Calendar, and my Gmail. So I can access things in those. So I can do something like, for instance, what's new in my Gmail inbox today? And if I want to get just a really basic rundown on it, it can go into my Gmail inbox, even if I spell it wrong. It's pondering it, it's looking at it, saying, what do I do with this? I haven't asked it to do this before, but it does let me check my inbox because I have connected it through and I've given it permission to access it, but only when I ask it to. So that's one little thing. So here's what's landing in inbox over the last day, an itinerary change to that. You know, two domain expiries, a NAB's lunch invite, history barbers for my barber appointment. Yes, I do use a barber, not for the top of my head, but the bottom of my head. And things is like, all these kind of things that are in there. So things I've had to swap in and out. So giving you like a little quick update. And I can do things like what seems the most important to do straight away. So I can, what is the thing I should do right now? And it'll then say take a priority based upon that and tell me what I should really do. Domain renewals, I don't need to do those. Jessa itinerary change, I don't need that because it automatically updates in my calendar anyway. So this one was doing the, this is the one that I need to swap around, which I already have. So that's good. So in the max that is interacting with my live calendar right now, which is fantastic. It really helps. And it means if I'm in here already, I'm doing this stuff. So if I'm going over, then I can search all my previous chats in here. So all the previous chats I've done, I can search for a specific thing and just say something like, I don't know, psychology. Has there been a mention of psychology in any of the chats I've had? There you go. 3 of those chats. I remember, overcoming fear of judgment. It'll bring me up that chat. So the searching is really fast, really good, and something you can do in the free version as well. That's when we start to get to the depth of it. So, for example, when you're using ChatGPT, you may use GPTs or projects. They're two different things. Claude has their own versions of that called projects. So in my projects, I've got like a one that helps me compile one of my both my newsletters, in fact, and then also things like helping me to write things and my branded guides, putting those together. So, for example, this is like a GPT or a project you might use in something like ChatGPT. I can go into this Click Starter branded guides thing, and what this does, it designs up a web page based upon a presentation that I've done. So if I can go into something like Gamma, I'll pull out one of my presentations and download it. So we've got the vulnerability line. Let's pick out that one. I'm going to download that by going share. This is not related to Claude, by the way. This is just something I'm doing. I'm going to grab the PowerPoint presentation. So it's now generating. It's going to download that. And what I'm going to do is go back to Claude and load that in and ask it to do a specific thing with it. So it can do something like, maybe turning it into a interactive online guide, which I do a lot of. So all my workshops have these as well. So as it's exporting it, I probably should have done it as in a PDF. It'd be a lot quicker. So let's do a quick PDF one because it is a lot faster to do it that way. Go, exporting's taking a while. PDF export's ready. Here it comes. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go start, and I've got a preset sequence in here. And I've shown people how to do this on webinars before. This you can do in ChatGPT as well. In fact, I've got it over here on ChatGPT. So click start online guides. I've created that in there too. Start and does the same thing. So these are preset sets of instructions you've already got for it to be able to do. So over in Claude, it says, what's the name of the guide going to be? I'm going to call it The Line in the Sand on Vulnerability. So a lot of these things I'm going to show you today, I'm going to show you side by side in Claude and ChatGPT as well. So that one's got the name as well. It's going to ask me to paste or upload the material. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to upload that PDF in there. I'm going to do the same in ChatGPT. It's asking me the same thing. I've got exactly the same process in there. It does the same thing. And so Claude now has it. I'm going to keep go. I'm using the the high usage versions in both of these. So it does work with the free versions really well too. So I don't have to use the high versions with these ones. They work equally well between both of them. Just taking a while to upload to ChatGPT, but the Claude is going and saying, okay, do you want to use the normal call to action? I'll just say continue because I do want to use it. GPT is nearly there, just taking a little while to upload. Find that ChatGPT has a lot more outages and downtime and slowness than what the other ones do, mainly because it's the most used one. And like 99% of users are using the free version. So they're kind of maxing it out. And you do get a preference to the server resources when you are a paid user on all these systems, but sometimes the system is just slow. Like for instance, that's taking just forever to upload. It's not that big a PDF. So it's kind of annoying in ChatGPT. But what it does in this case, it's now creating me an HTML guide. So it's creating me basically a web page based upon my training materials that I provided in that. So it's producing that so I can say, hey, instead of me sending you the useless slides that nobody really looks at, here's a link to an interactive guide that I pre-programmed that you can do. I'm going to try this one again because that's just pretty slow, ridiculously slow. 2.5 megabytes. It should be almost instant with the internet connection I'm on. There we go. It's better. Let's see ChatGPT do the same thing. So Claude's now creating all this. I'm using the top version of Claude, so it's going to take a little longer. It's thinking a bit harder, much the same as ChatGPT. I'm going to ask it to skip over a call to action and just create the normal one I've programmed it to do. So this is all stuff which I pre-programmed, and you can do this in Gemini as well. It does all the same thing. Tomorrow, we'll be doing this same kind of thing, comparing ChatGPT and Gemini on the same things. So it's now going, writing all that code like a good robot should. And Claude's doing the same in the background. What Claude does, it doesn't really, show you this. I'm showing you my code building in front of you. It just does it in the background. Then suddenly it just goes, boom, here's your output. And it looks pretty good. ChatGPT does the same. It's got a really good layout too that it does. They're all very, very good. So as it's doing that, I can sort of point over on the left here. You'll see that I've starred certain things, certain projects, right like Dante in the LinkedIn belief shifting post, because I use them all the time to help me brainstorm my writing. That would be the same as you pinning your favorite GPT or project to that left-hand bar in ChatGPT. As you can see here, the GPTs, I've got these ones all pinned as the ones I use the most often. And then in projects, you'll see the projects I've also got pinned there, the online guides, the safe space, outreach emails, EcoBench, all the things I've mostly used in my ChatGPT projects as well. This is now written all that code in ChatGPT, so it was nice and quick. So let's see what ChatGPT does. It produces me this website that's got all the design elements I've asked for it. I've already preset what I want it to look like, including all the fonts and the colors and all that sort of stuff. So it's produced me a nice little online guide that I can then take the code with and put it on a website somewhere, and then that displays. Claude is doing the same. It's just taking a little bit longer to do it because I've got the super duper 4.6 version of it working on it, and it could be a little bit faster. I could have just gone with the lower level, like the Sonnet 4.6 would have been a lot quicker, which is the default for a lot of the free stuff you're doing on Claude. And it's very, very capable. It's just as capable as ChatGPT on all these things as well. But as we saw, the new version of ChatGPT, which they say auto, but it's basically the 5.3 and 5.4. So it would have used 5.4 to do this in ChatGPT because I'm using the paid version. It may have defaulted to 5.3 to do some basic coding like I've done here in ChatGPT. So comparison wise, they're much the same. Claude's a little slower because I stupidly chose the super duper version instead of the faster version. So I could make this go a lot quicker. As it's doing that, let's explore some of the other things over here. So I'm going to right click on this to open up a new window for what Claude artifacts are. This is basically the same kind of thing as apps in ChatGPT, the things you can connect through, or what ChatGPT calls their GPT marketplace. So over in ChatGPT, if we go over to our GPTs and we want to go exploring them, and all the app connections, it's a combination of the app connections, so connecting through things you're already using elsewhere through to ChatGPT, and then these GPTs that you can then use bit of that one, and explore other people's GPTs there. So Claude calls them artifacts. Now, this is where you can build some of your own. So these are, things I've built, like Durac lawn mowing services, which is a little thing I built, little things I've done in the past that I've said, okay, I want to do that over and over again. I don't use this very much at all. I mostly use my projects because it does just as good a job. And I don't want to share them. So I'm not sharing projects. Projects are your private place to act just like they are in ChatGPT, where you've got your projects are your private places to work on these things. You're not sharing them, whilst you can share it to people. Projects have a lot of private information in them. So for instance, this Dante GPT one in the settings has very specific, instruction sets that I've put in there, which are not coming up for some reason because I haven't updated in a while, but the Click Start Online Guides one certainly has a lot of settings. So it's got a lot of context that I've written into it. As you see, lines and lines and lines of instructions. And I've also trained it on certain sources. So I've loaded in certain things. In this case, I haven't done it, but in Claude, I have. So I've got things loaded into this, for example. So I've got no files, but I've got a lot of context I've written up there. So you don't really want to be sharing these kind of things. What you want to be doing, you can look at that memory, but the problem is that's my memory of my use of all of Claude. It understands who I am based upon my usage of this project. So every time I generate one of these things, it adds automatically to the memory of that project. So it gets better over time. So if I correct things and say, no, I need to make it 3 times longer, it will then apply that learning to all the new ones that I try to do. ChatGPT does a very similar thing. It just doesn't have memory as far as the project goes. What it does have, though, is memory as far as the whole of ChatGPT goes. Speaking of memory, there is some important stuff you'll do mostly in the paid versions of these, and instead of the free version, but you do get some use of this in the free versions, is telling these things a little bit about what your overall preferences are. In my settings for ChatGPT, if I go into personalization, we've got this base style and tone, your characteristics of how it's going to add to your style, and then these custom instructions. So I've got a very limited amount of custom instructions I can do in ChatGPT. It only allows, I think, 8,000, might be 5,000 characters, whereas I can go on for ages with Claude. So here's Claude's interactive guide that's built for me. So again, it took a bit longer, but the polish and the style it's done for it. Let me just make that a little bit bigger so we can see more of it. There we go. So the polish is much greater. It's created a much more polished version of that interactive guide. So it's done a pretty nice thing. It's done a great job. Like interactive elements that I can tick off as I'm going. Pretty good. This, because it's learned that I want a much longer guide, whereas ChatGPT doesn't have that learning that Claude does. So this is where I go. It's learned from me that I want these things to be 3 times longer than what the default will normally pump out. And I want so much engagement, and I want tons and tons of interactivity, quizzes, all that sort of thing. Even though the exact same instructions are existing inside GPT, Claude has learned what it is I have consistently kept telling it to do. Look at this. It's so long and so useful that basically you're creating a course. Doesn't display that, but as soon as I take this over into my own website, it actually does display my logo up in the top left. It just won't do it in this particular browser. So going back to ChatGPT with our custom instructions, nothing to do with what we just saw. This is just your overall instructions, what you want it to do. So in this, I'm trying to teach it to not do certain things and to avoid certain patterns that AI tends to do. Things like the kicker, here's the kicker. It's not X, but Y, that kind of thing. Things like, like tapestry, realm, testament, nuances, underscore, delve, my favorite word to hate right now. I'm telling it to do that in ChatGPT. In Claude, you do the same thing. We just go over into our settings in here. So if I go down to my plan and go into my settings, in here, I've got my personal preferences under general. Same thing, but the difference is it takes all of them, like a massive set of instructions. So I've got, don't use these words, don't use these structures. Don't do this thing where you become a servant. Also, don't use generic words. Use very specific words. Formatting and grammar. Make sure you do this kind of thing. Don't overuse M dashes. In this case, I said don't use M dashes at all. So, in fact, despite my spelling and grammar error there we go, I'll correct that. It doesn't use them anymore. It doesn't do them. Um, and then the Turing test, it does a test at the end of the generation of everything. So this is another thing, but this is the kind of detail you can go into. And this is well over 5,000 characters. So it fits it all in so that every single thing you do in Claude will be tested against those instructions every single time. So if you got little things that really annoy you, like taking out the Z's in optimize, minimize, and theorize, well, then it will do that, and it will do it really, really well in consistency. So that's a really big thing that you can do, is set that stuff. Also tell it what it wants to call you, and give it what is the kind of thing you do mostly. If it's other, put in the other, and then it won't put a preference on. But because I'm more marketing oriented, it does understand that what I'm doing here is mostly marketing and content related. So that's the sort of setup for those preferences in Claude. So over in your you go down to your plan, you go settings, and then you can see that. I'm paying for a max plan at the moment simply because I have max usage. I'm creating apps on here, which is a whole other level of stuff that it can do. So that's a look around the basics of Claude. There's also then, if we go to ChatGPT, look at some of the more expanded things like, deep research is something you can do in here. You can do deep research reports. Claude already does that as well. So if I just create a chat and just basically say I want to, add deep research. So research, and it does it. Or I want to connect a certain thing. So I'm going to connect my Google account. Sorry, please show Google Drive. I can add things from Canva. So I've actually already connected my Canva account to it as well. Or I can search my Drive. So whenever I want to, and I can add more connectors onto it. Now you can do this in ChatGPT as well. Not saying you can't. It's just as easy to do, but it has lots of different granular controls you can perform in Claude, especially with Canva. There's things it can do, things it can't do, or I can tell it to do more things. So I can basically generate designs from here over in my Canva account and then bring them back into Claude. So this is the same. ChatGPT is very much the same. Skills is where really you start to see that there's a big difference between these things. Skills are very programming wise, and it's kind of like your own personal algorithm. So in here is you're developing a philosophy about the way that you act. So some of those skills could be things like canvas design, brand guidelines. So for instance, if there's a specific design creation for solid, this is honestly, you're not going to play with this. Most of the skills you're going to draw on are things that are included in Claude, such as the PowerPoint PPTX skill, the Microsoft Word skill, the file conversion skill that are already built in that you don't have to do anything with it. So these are just examples, or you can create your own. And this is a big sort of, a guide to how to do that. So for example, it's got a bunch of skills already in there. If you want to create your own that does a very specific thing, it's got a trigger that you can bring up an at mention, and then it brings in a specific skill. So for instance, if you have a skill that is dealing with your CRM, or it's dealing with your common spelling errors that you want to fix, you could have a skill that you call on to use that every time. This is honestly a little bit advanced, and you're probably not going to use this so much, but it's good to know it's there. So when you do get to that more advanced stage, you'll be able to use it. And then there's, of course, like what's been quite famous lately is Claude Code. So Claude Code is a system built specifically for coding. ChatGPT has got Codex. Again, they are almost exactly the same thing. So you can download the app to work on your desktop, connect it through your GitHub account, if that's something you've ever done. I'm suspecting probably almost none of us have done that before. Some of you might have. And this is where you can go in to go, okay, I can do hardcore coding in here and build things, build apps. Same thing with Claude Code. It can connect through the terminal. It's all these things you can do. You can start on the web. You can do it on a desktop. If you are going to do this, you can, but you actually don't necessarily, if you're doing very basic things, you don't necessarily need Claude Code itself in Wix to do those. Like for instance, what I just did before when I brought up our little guide. So in that guide was created in such a way that was in Claude code. So if I open this up, it actually created code that is Claude code as well. So the easier way to do it is just through chatting with Claude. But once you become a developer, once you become someone who really wants to do something much more heavy, that's where you might go in the Claude code, where you interact with the code more. Like I can go in here and change some code in here manually, and that's fine. But the reality is, how many of us on this call and whoever watches this will ever understand what any of this means? This is where you will just usually just interact with the code through the chat on the left-hand side and change the things you want to change by asking it. So, for instance, change the start the guide button to, no, let's change it to green. And that's how we would normally interact with these things, just through the coding feature within the regular chat in Claude. As I said, most of you are never going to do this stuff. You're probably going to, get other people's, prompts and project prompts so you can start creating more fun things. This thing I love doing. I love creating these things because they add an extra thing onto my list of things I can do that other people generally don't do when it comes to training and in webinars and whatnot. But over on the left on ChatGPT, we've pretty much covered all those things. The search is pretty good. You'll see a recent list of things you've done, the recent list of chats, all the same over here in Claude, where you can go, here's all your recents, all down there. So a lot of what happens with Claude is my own personal observations are really around style. I believe that Claude is a far superior writer out of the box, as its style of writing has always been far better and more nuanced with the English language than what ChatGPT is. Also, it learns dramatically well about who you are. So if I was to go in here and say, create a post on LinkedIn in my style about, I don't know, the power of learning code at a basic level. So I've put an assumption in there that it knows who I am. It does draw from my learning to exactly know who I am. Even if I go for the quick free version, not the super that powerful version, it will still draw on that. So it'll fit. Look, it's worked out who I am. It's gone to my LinkedIn. So that's how much it knows. It went to my LinkedIn and went, okay, I can't write code, not properly anyway. I can build a database from scratch or architect. It's actually written a really, really good personal post based upon what it knows about the way that I write. And that's straight out of the box. I haven't had to personally train this. There's nothing in my instructions that I showed you before that tells it how to write like me. I've just told it how not to write like AI. So you've got all of these amazing little tools you can do to help you to write really well. Like that's a really good writing. I could do the same over here, open a new chat and go, I'm going to do exactly the same prompt. So here we go. Create exactly the same text and it'll do a pretty good job. Like the new version of this is pretty good. Will it go and search my LinkedIn? No, it didn't search my LinkedIn. I learned a tiny bit of code years ago, not enough to call myself developer, not enough to build the next $1 billion, just enough to understand. So it's like, not enough, not enough. It's got lots of patterns. It doesn't really follow the pattern thing as well as I would like it to. You see structure, inputs, outputs, conditions. It's a bit more formulaic, lots of formatting in here. And it's not this, it's that. You stop asking this, you start asking that. So it has not picked up much of my rules that I wanted for it to obey as an overall style in here, where Claude has really obeyed that and it's gone, actually, I'm not doing that. Basically, that's a job. Got a little bit of a call to action in there because that's what LinkedIn posts are apparently like. I usually cut that little bit off. But the actual writing style is so much more aligned to how I would write. That's without me having to go into my Write Like Dante thing, which it has been trained on all my stuff. My last 2,000 LinkedIn posts, my last however many pre-written without AI newsletters. So it's trained in exactly the way I would type. So that's without that, just in an open chat. It just knows what to do with me because it just knows better because I've asked it to. And it has its memory window is much longer than ChatGPT's. ChatGPT will remember every post you've ever done, but it doesn't necessarily know what to do with those generations. It doesn't know how to pull those in and help you to write better because that's what you've learned over time. So as you learn, it learns as well, learns right alongside of you. So that's really the main differences between the two. Cost wise, they're almost identical in pricing. So if I go, Claude pricing, it's going to tell me basically in the upgrade, to what I've already got, 26 a month Australian, so they're around about the same. I'm currently paying the 154.54 because I'm an idiot and I buy everything, and my bank account is really annoyed with me, and my accountant's even more annoyed. But that's because I need the 5 times the usage of Pro because I'm using this all day, every day, and that's the level of usage I need. I used to do it for ChatGPT. I now barely use ChatGPT because I'm mostly in here and in Gemini as well. So your costs pretty much the same as what you're going to pay for ChatGPT. So we go ChatGPT costs. Oops. So let's go upgrade your ChatGPT plan. Let's see what it has to say. So the free, the Go version. So that's yeah, good luck using anything in that. You get barely anything for the $8 a month. But the $20 a month is about the same. This is all in US. This is not Australian pricing, US pricing. So just bear that in mind. That's going to be about $15. That's going to be about 26, 27, almost $30, depending on where the dollar is. So you are getting, yeah, it's good. It's not bad. It is good. So just bear that in mind. Not Australian pricing. This is Australian pricing. So to me, the biggest difference between the two, which may be a killer for you, is Claude don't do images. So it cannot create images. It doesn't do images. It doesn't do video. So if you're using Sora for video, you're not going to find that in here. There is no video. There is no images. It won't create images. It doesn't have an image creator like ChatGPT does. So I could go to a new chat and try to create an image and go create a flat red and yellow logo for my fast food restaurant called McDowell's. And it will do that, but Claude won't. It cannot create images. So if that's an important thing to you, it may not be the right time to jump over. But that said, I believe that by far, Google's Gemini creates by far the better images and does far better with editing images. And their latest release just this week can actually consistently take 14 different elements from an image and be able to work with it and carry those elements consistently across from image to image to image. So it's very good at being able to take a character and make that character more persistent. ChatGPT is good. It's not terrible. It's still good, but it's not quite as good. So as what Gemini is. Claude, though, doesn't do that. So you're not going to be able to do that stuff from there. It's doubling down on what it does well: code, writing, and accuracy. Very big on those things.